Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery, the beyond, the man behind the curtain, whatever your ideas about what this thing called life is and this crazy year that we're having here in 2020. Just welcome you to another conversation. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love these conversations. They really help to open me up and illuminate me and give me new things to think about and contemplate and stir up things for me to really think about. And it's like this great mystery gets opened up every single time I hear somebody's story and we hear like what journey they've been on. It stirs something new within us. So I really welcome you to the show. I hope that you enjoy these broadcasts, and I welcome you to take your own specific journey, to deepen your journey of connection to that which is bigger than you and your journey through life. And if you want to have that conversation, well, then you can visit my website. It's carriehummingbird.com, Kerri, hummingbird.com, and sign up for a discovery call or check out what's going on the website. We got a lot of cool stuff going on. So I hope you join us at some point and get to know you a little bit better. So in the meantime, I'm going to introduce you to another one of my friends who is pretty cool. So we're going to talk about some very interesting things today, just based on our initial conversation. I think you're going to enjoy this. So Kevin Mackey is here with us. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Carrie.
So Kevin,
I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, Kevin, it's so exciting to have you here because I know that we had such a great conversation the first time. I was like, wow, we could just talk for hours. So Kevin is an intuitive writer, a healer, a teacher, and a guide. He grew up in Colorado and graduated in Denver from college, from Regis University. And after college, he began a career in the tech industry. And I know that story well because I spent 20 years in high tech. And he worked for big technical companies like Hewlett Packard and Real Networks and Microsoft and all that kind of stuff. So Kevin and I share tech geek background.
Right.
It's its own doorway to the spiritual journey.
It really is.
It really is. So in 2011, Kevin had a spiritual awareness begin to grow and change just about everything in his life. And he didn't understand what was happening to him. And he sought out assistance of several well-known psychics to help in understanding the path that was stretching up before him. And can you guys relate to that? Probably so. So he would go on to become a Reiki master and a quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner, and he runs his own practice in Washington State. So QHHT, I know that you guys, if you're listening to me and you've found me on other podcasts, I talk a lot about Dolores Cannon and how her teachings opened me up to understanding about the second wave, because I was called to write the second wave book. And I was like, well, I don't know what that is. And they said, well, why don't you go remind yourself by go checking out this video that you've seen a while back, you just forgot, Dolores Cannon. It's the second wave, talks about the 3 ways of volunteers. And so Dolores Cannon invented the QHHT program, the hypnosis technique that Kevin is now a practitioner of. And her daughter is now running the Institute because Dolores passed away a few years ago. So we have such a wonderful lot to talk about here, Kevin. And I just encourage you to tell us, I always have people tell us, how did you start? Like, what was your crazy story? What was your story that led you, you're like, wait a second, I need psychic help because something is strange is happening. Tell us more about that story.
So I was living I was in an odd place mentally and dealing with a lot of stress. I had my sister's family living with us and my mother living with us. And so the dynamic of all of it was very stressful. And at the time I worked in a network operations center in AT&T, and our group dealt with all of the outages. So if something went down in the network, our group, worked and helped manage the teams that went out in the field to help fix those outages. So it was a very stressful, work environment at times. You can have people yelling at you and calling you names because you can't find something, and it can be a stress-inducing time. So I was having just this terrible time. And I was driving home, and I worked late. I worked in nights, and I remember driving home, and I said, "Universe, I really just could use a sign. You know, I feel like it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm miserable." And you know, it was probably maybe a week later. I was standing out on a balcony, and you know, it's really dark. It's in the early morning. I'm sitting out on the balcony, and there's this gully of trees. Um, and, you know, Washington is just full of trees, and it's a foresty place. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, in the distance, I see this white object coming through the forest, and it's coming very slowly at first towards me. And as it clears the trees and it starts flying over my neighbor's yard, I can see that it is this huge white owl. And I'm standing on the balcony. I can see the white owl, and it came very close, and it just stopped and spread its wings, and it looked right at me. It looked right at my
Oh,
eyes.
so cool.
And then it just turned around and flew away, just slightly glided away back into the grove of trees. And I was just like, oh my God, universe, that was really good.
That was really interesting.
Right. I asked for a sign. I wasn't expecting this. And so that was exciting. And it kind of lifted me in that moment and made me think, oh, there's something bigger out there. There's a bigger purpose for me. And that's when I started to sort of believe it. And after that owl, there was strange knocking that started happening on my at the on the house we lived on. So the house was a two-story house, and the living room was like the west wall in the living room was 2 stories high, and then the east wall was kind of ground level, and the north and south wall were kind of ground level. And I was sitting there when the knocking started happening. There would be 3 knocks on the ceiling, uh, 3 knocks on the north wall, and then 3 knocks on the west wall. So it was this knocking that started happening, and this went on for a couple of weeks. And it seemed to go on until I finally acknowledged it. I finally said, "Okay, I I know you're there. I know you are trying to get my attention, and I am paying attention now."
Yeah. Did other people hear it too?
Yes, yes. It wasn't only me that could hear the knocking. And it would only happen if I came into the living room. Then it would start knocking. And there were times where that knocking was really quite loud and profound, like, get up, stop swimming and all this stuff, stop doing this. And so and I knew it was very spiritual in nature, and so I thought I would reach out to a psychic to find out what was happening. I felt like there was a huge change coming, but I could not no longer stay in this environment with my family. And so I I found this. So I'm listening to this radio program that does paranormal radio. And this British psychic comes on and starts taking calls, and his name is Christian Dion. And Christian Dion is from Yorkshire, England. And he is kind of a unique psychic because he doesn't let you ask any questions at first. He just tells you what's going on in your life. He just sits there and says, "Oh, well, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening." And he goes through and he kind of just gives you the truth. And people are like, "Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's happening." And then in the end, he kind of says, "Okay, what are your questions?" And so I called him, scheduled a reading because I kind of wanted to understand what was happening. And he told me that he's like, there's a deeper spiritual part of you that's trying to come forth, that's trying to move into a different life. he's like, you're very much into the creative part, into writing, into being more creative, and the universe is pushing you to this point where you become definitely more spiritual. And he's like, if you just let it grow, you will not regret it one bit. It will make you brighter and shinier, and you will be blessed as you embrace this. And he's like, I wouldn't doubt if you see spirit people, and he's like, definitely in the coming years, you will definitely see them a lot more. And so that's what he told me, that there was this deeper, he saw me doing writing that was more of a channeled writing than just writing a story. He's like, some people come into the world with a gift or with a talent for writing, and some people come in with a gift of writing. And he's like, you have a gift of writing that you're going to bring to the world. And he's like, there are going to be books on a massive scale. Not He's like, there might be 5 or 6 at first, but then it's just going to go on and on and on. And that was really encouraging, because that was, writing is something that I love to do. And then he got into the nitty gritty. He's like, now, here's what I want you to do. He's like, I want you to stop being the fixer in your family.
Well, that's a hard one, right?
Yeah. He's like, and just to give you an idea, not even God can fix this mess. He's like, so you are losing the battle already. He's like, you need to get out of this house and get a place of your own, and you will be so much happier. And at the time, I was like, I was really I was really hesitant to leave because of my mom. My mom was like, well, what am I going to do? I was asking this psychic, Christian Dion, well, what will I do with my mom? And he's like, well, it's not like you're going to drive her to the train station with a suitcase in her hand. He's like, trust me, she will find a place. She will, she'll make it through. It's not your, he's like, it's not your responsibility to fix everything. He's like, everyone is capable of fixing themselves, and they have been kind of perpetuating and keeping you in this place. And he's like, they're not benefiting you at all. They're kind of pulling you down. And the second you get out of that house, you'll be the happiest man in the world. And so I kind of listened to him, and I got out of the house, and everything happened, the way it should happen. Nobody died or gained weight. Everyone found their own place, and then that's when spirit really started to work and change things. And that's when I kind of felt the yearning to go in and learn Reiki. And I found the most amazing Reiki master in Bothell at Life Solutions, and she was just such a compassionate person. So I learned Reiki from a nurse, so an RN nurse that does Reiki in the hospital on patients, and her name is Nancy Merrifield, and oh my gosh, she is just an amazing, amazing teacher. And she did all of our attunements, and that's when so before so before I did the Reiki, Carrie, I was a little bit out of control still. I was indulging, and I was a 2 pack a day smoker, and I was like, okay, universe, I'll just let you you know take control here, because I really don't I really don't know that I can be a healer, because I have high social anxiety. But it worked out. It just worked out. The When I did the first attunement of Reiki, it didn't feel very powerful.
Hmm.
It kind of did. I was kind of
You
like,
just couldn't feel it, like you were too,
yeah,
maybe not in your body enough, or too um distracted, or I like to call it crusty
yeah,
humans.
yeah. I was
Too
too into
crusty.
too into my crustiness. So I didn't feel like anything had really happened, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'll go back for the rest of it. So I'm like, okay, I feel like this is the path. I'll go back and do the second one. And so that night we went to do the second attunement, Reiki attunement, and this time something definitely happened. And Nancy did the Reiki symbols and put her hands on me, and everything behind my eyes turned violet. And I could feel heat just coming through everything. I could feel this heat. I'm like, okay, that really did do something. And it was a great feeling, and it took the Reiki quite a bit of time to work on me. Like all of that crustiness had to be taken
Mm.
out. And it was there were times I was really cranky and people didn't want to be around me because I'm like, all of this stuff is coming, and all this past stuff, and I don't want to deal with all this and all of this. And so I was doing that, and then I came across uh as I was growing in my path, I was asking the universe, I want to be a more loving human being. I feel like there's a part of me that's so um aloof and not, I don't connect well with people. Like I feel awkward. And I was asking the universe questions. I can tell you exactly where I was when I asked the universe. So if I'm more loving, is that a feeling? Or is that a thought? Or is that an energy? Is that a vibration?
Mm.
And like the next day, I stumbled upon Paul Selig, who wrote, the I Am the Word books. But I actually found his book Love and Creation first. And in that book, he talks about love being a frequency.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what it was. And I could not put that book down. And I reread that book over and over. And it always feels like, okay, maybe it's almost always like an onion. Like you kind of peel it and you're kind of like, I want this change. I want these attunements. Please do these, because it's an interactive book. They do it
Oh
attunements.
yeah, I love Paul Selig's work. It's amazing. I like the audio version just because I like to receive his speaking of it like through every cell of my body.
Yeah.
When I listened to the I Am Word book, it was like I changed in 1 week listening to that book. Like I think I went up
Yes.
like a whole octave just like in 1 week. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it's like every time you invite the medicine in, it penetrates even more deeply through your crust, like into
Right.
the more true you, like the not conditioned aspect of you, the true self underneath all the crust.
Exactly. And it really changed me as well. I found myself walking through a grocery store and having more empathy for people and having more of a connection. And it seemed like it did such a dramatic change. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like severe.
Well, it can stir up a lot of stuff, right? Like it stirs up things on its way to healing you.
Exactly. Exactly. And it did just that. And then I went and did the and bought the I Am the Word book. And I was so excited by that book. I gave it to my little sister. I'm like, oh, you just got to read this book. I'm like, there's something interactive about it. And like the day I gave it to her, her whole entire apartment burned down.
What?
Yeah. like like the day I gave it to her, she's like, she's like, and she was joking about it later. She's like, probably if you hadn't given me that book, my apartment is still be intact.
It's kind of like the guy saying, okay, all that you had needs to go. And
Yeah,
here comes the new information.
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, and she had quite an experience coming back from that fire. But it had nothing to do with Paul Selig.
You think.
I don't think it had anything to do with it. But that also changed. It changed a lot. And then eventually I went and did my master attunements and became a Reiki master. Um, and that changed everything as well. I became a Holy Fire 3 or Holy Fire 2 Reiki master. And I got my attunements with another nurse. So it was me and this other nurse that got our attunements, and we walked out of there just feeling so amazing. And since that day, it's just been an amazing thing because all of this stuff just fell away and fell away. And so the last thing that needed to fall away was this terrible job that I was doing. And it finally, the universe kind of worked it out to where it was going to be, kind of a send off with a little bit of money. And so I had a whole year to do QHHT and to do Reiki, and I just spent this year going through the forest, and it changed everything. Um, yeah, I had no connection to nature until that year because I felt just aloof and distant from it. But once I started walking through the woods and experiencing other life, everything peeled away. Just everything peeled away, and there's something very healing about it. It just made me a better Reiki person. It made me a better listener, and it just changed everything. It was like a slow, gradual healing uh, that just did deep, deep, deep restoration. And I still do it, now. I still go into the woods and walk through there and be so I can be connected to all of this other stuff and feel full again. Feel there's a part of it that just fuels you and restores you and grounds you.
Absolutely. I love that. I can so resonate with that. And as you were speaking, I was thinking to myself about, there's a lot of, well, there's a lot of crusty humans right now,
Right.
on the planet as it
Right.
happens. And, we were all crusty at one point, so we get it. But like, that's, I think, why um, it's so interesting to see the impulse to stay indoors all the time, like just wanting
Right.
to stay inside and like be on the computer and be around technology or be in front of the television, or like all of that is like crusty behavior. I mean,
It
really,
really is.
it's crusty behavior. And this, like you're a crusty human if that's all you do all day long. You're in
Right.
that stage. So like that's because if you go outside and you go to nature without some other interference, like to disturb that crust, without some Reiki healing or some other decision, like listening to I am the word or doing any other thing, like without an intention, without something inviting this support, this help, then going to the woods just feels like going to the woods. Like it doesn't open up for you the way it does when you've made the decision that you're going to heal and that you're ready for the divine to enter your life. Like then a whole nother thing happens in the woods than before.
Exactly.
It's like a
And
magic door opens and you go, oh, well, now,
right.
okay.
Right.
And it keeps opening. That's the thing, is it just keeps, right? It keeps unfolding.
Yep. And made a friend who does elf walks, what she calls elf walks,
Ooh.
enchanted walks in the forest. And basically all she does is she takes all these highly stressed people that are, nothing's really working for them, and she just takes them into the forest, and she finds interesting things for them to look at. Oh, and she knows a lot about mushrooms, and she knows a lot about moss and plants, and she'll take people in and show them this. And she really likes people. She knows places where trees look like angels, and there are little faces in the trees, and she takes people into these places in the forest, and has them feel earth beneath them. And she has them climb up into a huge maple tree. And the people might not have been talking at the beginning of this nature walk, but by the end they're just full and they're talking. And it feels like somewhere along the way people drop their whatever, they just drop it. And
Yeah, the adultness. I call
yeah,
the adult seriousness. And then as you come back alive again, like
yeah,
like the magic awakens back and starts to awaken back inside of you. You start to go, like your imagination opens up. It's like,
right.
oh, there's a face in the tree. Oh,
Right.
this tree is a tree spirit. Oh. you know, and that part of you that is like a little child, that little child part goes, I totally know there's a tree spirit inside that tree.
Exactly.
And then the adult
Exactly.
mind that wants to shut it, the logical, it's serious adult that wants to just spend all day working, you know, at the computer, is
Hmm.
like, okay, I gotta get, this is not leading me anywhere. Like, where is it leading me?
Yep. Yep. And on one of those walks, we started finding little Tupperwares hidden in like little tree trunks. And we started, we pulled them out of the tree trunks, and they were full of like little notebooks and little pens, and people had left little gifts or had written little notes like, "Oh, we came through here in the forest on this day, and this is what we saw," and it was really, really something. So every time we'd find one, there was usually little tiny toys, or like there was a whistle in one. And just all kinds of, stuff. But it's fun and to find it. And so I would find the little container and just put like little stones. Like I do tumbled stones, and I put tumbled stones in there, and then we'd kind of hide them in a different place so that whoever is next gets to go through and find the little Tupperware containers full of the messages. And some of us just wrote "We love you" and just little tiny notes like that. But it's fun. It was fun. And this lady makes her living doing that. Her name is Shannon, and she has a little booth at the Shannon Spencer. She has a little booth at the um, uh, flea market, and that's how she makes her living, taking people, stressed out people, into the forest.
To go on an adventure and,
Yeah,
you know, experience a little magic.
yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
But it was funny when I went on the first one, Carrie. We were walking, we, we were walking through this little, just a little spot. It was kind of a trail, and all of a sudden, she takes us into this huge grassy area where the grass is like, up to our chest, and we're going at her.
Wow.
She's like, we're gonna just lay. I'm gonna show you how to lay the grass down, and we're just gonna have a little bit of a thing here. And and I hadn't been. So this is when I'm just figuring out the forests, right? But I'm so terrified. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a great big
Like a
muskrat in
snake
here,
or something
or
in there.
snake. But it actually didn't happen. We laid down the grass, and then Shannon had pulled out this crystal singing bowl, and it resonated with the root chakra. It was a grounding singing bowl, and we started doing it, and it was interesting how it affected everything around us. She's like, we're just going to get grounded a little, and she just tongued it and tongued it, but then she really started to play this crystal ball.
I
And
just got one of those from a client. It was such a beautiful gift. And
yeah.
yeah, it's gorgeous. It's big, but it's like really that root chakra sound. Oof.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's amazing how it opens up Mother Earth energy.
Exactly,
So what did it do
exactly.
for you in the woods? Because I know what it did in our in a room.
It felt like it changed everything. It felt like the birds were enjoying this, and that the wind, there was a cool breeze blowing, and it just felt like we were in this space, and we had created like a little sacred grass space in this wilderness, and we're enjoying this chakra crystal bowl. And there are fishermen, kind of like, what?
What's that?
What's that? What are they doing?
What are they
but
doing?
but it really and the bowl singing really has a way. The tone of it has a great way of grounding
Mm.
and making you feel you know more centered. And I have little meditation tracks with solfeggios and bowls in them, and they do wonders.
They are. They're very healing. I received this as a gift. I played it during a ceremony for a client. It's hers. And she, after the ceremony, she said, you know what? I'm giving you this because you need to have it. And I was like, thank you. Because I brought it home and I just played it in the house, and I could feel the whole energy of the house just open up. Like, because I'm really working on this divine mother energy and emanating this divine mother energy. And it's like really works with this bowl because it's like the root, which is our mother, which is our mother earth. And it just opens the whole thing up.
Exactly. Exactly. I have another one that that is the heart chakra,
Yes.
and I use that for people who were coming into me for QHHT because I felt like it kind of made them feel calmer, and
Mm.
the calmer I could make them, the easier it is to go through and hypnotize them. And at first, when I first started doing hypnosis, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But
That's social anxiety, but you could connect and make it gentle. Because
yes.
obviously, I mean, we've been listening to you now for quite a while, 30 minutes or so, and your energy is very like reassuring and loving and grounding and very pleasant, so you can just imagine lying back in a session with Gavin, and he'd be snoring away as he's like telling you and relax, go into your vision. So tell us about, because I have experienced QHHT, but other people listening to the broadcast have heard me talk about it, but not necessarily know what happens during a session. And since you are a practitioner, maybe you could tell us more about the experience of it.
Oh, sure. I had a QHHT session myself, and it changed everything. It changed my entire life. I was like, oh my God. Um, so, there are past life elements to QHHT where you go into a past life and you learn what that life was, and you go all the way to the conclusion of that life, and then onto another one. And it's formatted in a way so that you connect eventually to your higher self, and you can ask questions of your higher self. And when I did it myself, um, I was shocked to find that I wasn't human at all in this lifetime that I had landed in. I didn't recognize anything when I went into the hypnosis. I'm like, everything looks really weird. I'm like, the houses are strange. The trees don't look normal. The sky isn't blue; it's purple. And as we started going into this, I started realizing, she's like, the QHHT practitioners, look at your feet. What do your feet look like? And I looked at my feet, and they were like, oh no, they weren't. They were almost amphibian looking, and they were white. Like, we were really, really white beings. And we were going through important days of that lifetime, and we get to the end of that life, and in the end, this whole planet explodes.
Mm.
And it was a weird feeling of feeling an entire planet just have this moment of peace, this extreme moment of peace, because we all knew what was about to happen. And I was in this little home with what was my mate and his parents, and because I was female in that life, and we all knew it was going to happen, and we all had this experience of um, just utter peace, which is how I ended up coming to the earth. And in the
Mm.
next lifetime, people who lose a whole planet have a lot of healing to do. And I came to the earth and lived as a tree for hundreds and hundreds of years, just healing and going through this life of. And she's like, "Whoa, what's happening now?" And I was like, "Well, I'm excited because there's this cat. There's a cat coming, and I look for this cat every day." And this cat kept coming in and climbing all over, and it was making me want to change and to live a different life as than other than a tree. And so that's how that life ended. But there's lots of life times that we went through in this QHHT session. And when she brought me out of that QHHT session, I said, I can't believe this. I cannot believe everything I saw. And I was like, it somehow disconnects me from my life. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you know how you believe in your life that, oh, you came from this person and this person and this person, and you have this, you know, you feel like you are your family, you feel like you're your history, and this made you this way, and our family was this, and all of a sudden none of that mattered because I was really a more universal spirit, a more universal person. And when that connection changed for me, when I felt kind of disconnected from that history, um, you know, it just changed everything. It changed the way I saw other people. It changed the way I saw my life. And when I do QHHT sessions with people, I love when that happens. When all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm completely different." Like there was one woman who was a healer in this lifetime, and oh my gosh, she was just, she didn't care about anything else but learning to heal. I will sit here, I will listen, her grandmother was the healer in this indigenous tribe, and she just wanted to learn from her grandmother and didn't care about playing, didn't care about anything else. And then when she left that life, she's like, I really wish I would have played a little bit more and done a little bit more than just being so serious about healing. So I love it when people make that connection that they're way more than their history, than their family.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that identification as something bigger than us, as something that's, enlivening the body, that it's moving through this particular incarnation. And it is an aspect of who we are. It's becoming an aspect of who we are, but there's all these other aspects too. And they're all happening at the same time because everything's, there's no time. Time is an illusion. So we're
Right.
all these versions of us are happening all the time, and they are all, that means you can tap into all of it at some level and bring it in to yourself. And this QHHT process, by becoming aware of it, actually, I think, it's my belief, lets you access that part of you and actually incorporate that into your current
Exactly.
experience.
Exactly. It gives you a perspective that you wouldn't normally have. And so your higher self that you can connect to can really quickly get rid of blocks, really quickly get rid of beliefs that are false, that are just keeping people stuck. And that's what I love about QHHT. Dolores Cannon had a client who came who was in hospice. She had really bad COPD, and she came carrying an oxygen generation machine. And she had a regular tank, and then she had all this machine that they plugged in so that she could do the hypnosis, the QHHT session on this lady. And Dolores kind of lived in Arkansas, where they had huge thunderstorms, and so she's doing the hypnosis, and there's like thunder and lightning, and this woman is completely still hypnotized. She doesn't notice the lightning and thunder going on around her, and goes through her lifetime. And then she gets Dolores Cannon, calls the higher self of this woman, and says, "Well, what do you want to say to her?" And the um, the higher self is like, and right when she was saying that, the electricity went out and the oxygen machine stopped, and Dolores Cannon is kind of like, "Oh, I don't want her to not have her oxygen." And the higher self of this woman said, "Oh, that's okay. She's not going to ever need that oxygen again. We've healed her lungs completely. It's like we've given her a new set of lungs." And at the end of that QHHT session, that lady could breathe perfectly.
Wow, that is
She
amazing.
she actually ran around Dolores Cannon's little office there. She's like, "I can breathe, I can breathe, I can breathe so much easier." And like a year later, she was doing a QHHT class in Hawaii. And the woman who had experienced the COPD and had been healed completely in her QHHT session, she was at that training, and she's like, I'm the lady, I'm the lady." And she ran around the whole auditorium so that they could see her.
Wow, that's amazing. I never heard that story. That's powerful.
Yes.
I think Dolores Cannon parted this dimension so she could be in service on the other side of the veil for everybody that's in part of the second wave that's doing the work now.
Yes, I believe that's true.
Because we're all stepping forward. I feel her a lot. Like I feel her come through and be present. Like almost like I say, I'll talk about it in a broadcast. Now that's just right here, like making sure I'm not going to talk about it wrong, you know,
Right. Right.
poking me. Like, now be sure to say this, like, okay, got it, saying it. So it's kind of cool because I never went through the training, but I have experienced it, and it's powerful work. Very
It
powerful.
it really is. It really can change everything. People can come through there healed. And what's really interesting is when she started getting into, the other voice of the other voice. So we all are connected to this much, much higher consciousness. And that's when it really got interesting, because Dolores Cannon would be doing a hypnosis session in London, and everybody can connect to this other higher self. And the higher self started explaining things about the universe to Dolores Cannon and the nature of things, and even the first, second, and third waves and stuff. But she could leave that conversation, and then she could go to Florida, and she would be doing a hypnosis session on somebody, and that higher being would come in the same voice and everything. Now, Dolores, remember when we were in London and I started telling you this? Well, here's the second part of it. So she would always get this higher consciousness. That was actually how she wrote the Convoluted Universe and all of those books.
Yeah, I tried to read those books. My friend kept pushing Dolores Cannon on me for a while,
Right.
and the books are like this, right?
Yeah,
And if I can attest that if you're not ready for it, you will fall asleep trying to read it. Because that's what
yeah,
happened to me. Like I tried to read that thing and I just I conked out. I just could not get through that book. And I kept trying because she kept pushing it on me. She's like, Carrie, you of all people would love this. And I was like, I can't get into it. I mean, I have tried to read it and I can't. I haven't tried in a few years though, but I think when I get through this book that I'm writing now, I think I'll have a little space and I can probably read it now because I think
yeah.
I'm at the space where I can actually take in this information, and receive it.
There's a book that was called Five Lives Remembered. Did you ever? This is
Oh, is that one of her books too?
Yeah, this book is not like the other ones. This book would probably be a little bit better for you, because it's one of the first. It's how her and her husband found past lives. Oh my God, that book is so good. If anybody has a fear of death and a fear of dying, just read that book, Five Lives Remembered,
Mm.
because they found Dolores Cannon and her husband John started hypnosis in the 60s. And they were just doing it to help people, like stop smoking and lose weight and relax. And they stumbled across this lady named Audrey who went completely into her past life. Um, and she wasn't Audrey anymore. She was this woman called June. And June was a flapper in the 20s. And she was just the most interesting character. She was kind of, her father wanted her to marry his best friend who was way, way older than her. And she's
Ooh.
like,
And she's
no,
like,
I don't want to. And she did. And she married this guy, and she hated her life. She hated it because it was just farm work, and more farm work. And she hated him. And she's like, "You're not touching me." And they go into town, and she sees this really good-looking Italian guy who she suspects is a gangster, and he just takes her away.
yay, better life.
She goes and she lives with this gangster as his mistress, because he's married, and so he puts her in a hotel for a year, and it's got room service, and she just lives in this hotel, and he builds her this huge 18 room mansion that she lives in her entire life. And the story is really interesting because she goes through her own death. Like, Dolores and John are so curious, they take her all the way to her death, and she's a spirit living in this huge mansion. And there's this old lady living in the mansion as well. And she finally asked the lady, "Well, who are you?" And she's like, Oh, well, she was her boyfriend's mother that had been living there. She's like, well, why aren't you living with him and his wife and in his house? She's like, I don't like her. It's like, I like you better.
Oh,
So it's interesting. And
wow.
she goes into these 5 different lives, and and John and Dolores are like fascinated by it, and they start telling all their neighbors about these past lives that this woman uh, had gone through, because she could go into a completely somnambulistic state and become the people that she was in her past life. So it's interesting. You might like that book.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So it's so interesting because it's my belief that Dolores Cannon and other people like her in the 60s were part of the first wave. Like they were here to
Right.
like pave the way and make the tools and the procedures and all the stuff that then we would all get trained on in the second wave, like on mass, because there's like 10% of the population that's second wave. So that we all, like, there's one of us for every 10 people, because as you know, personal transformation, you need a lot of touches. Like you need constant touches, because getting through the process is pretty tough. Like it's not easy to move
No.
through your layers of consciousness and elevate. So we understand that, and so that's why there's all this support this time, because this is what, the fifth time. So let's not destroy the planet this time.
All right.
There's like 4 other times when humanity had to be wiped out. So we're really working on it. I think this time we have a shot, and it looks a little scary out there. So do you get any messages about that, like from your client sessions or your meditations or the work that you do? Do you get information about like what's happening for us and the collective and what we need to focus on?
Yeah, yes. And I would say the strongest message that I keep getting, not only in just my own self, but from other people I've had on my show, the same message is what we need to be mindful of is how we're treating each other, and the kind of energy we're putting into the collective, because there's a lot of pain and sorrow and torment already in the collective. And I can even remember Christian Dion saying this, probably in 2011, that if we don't start treating each other better, we could end up with a dictator as a leader. We could end up like North Korea if we don't change the way we're speaking to each other, and the way that uh, we're uh, engaging each other. And to me, that's the most important message that's been coming, because there's these little labels and dynamics and dichotomies that we need to just throw away, because they're really destroying us, not only as a country as the United States, but in the world. But I'm excited that we're starting to see this new energy that makes it easier for us to connect, a little bit more easy to put people at ease. And I see a lot of individuals coming who just have that ability to be powerful communicators. And I think that's really what we are, as the second wave. We're powerful communicators. And I think, we chose to forget and come here and do all the stuff and things and learn all the lessons. And then, you know, pretty soon we're just going to, okay, here I am.
I think that's exactly it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly the message. It's like in the second wave book, it came through as we're closing the book of fate. we've
Yeah.
been we've been invited to close the book of fate now. It's like, okay, you came in to be all that, so you'd remember or know what it's like to be an earthling, or all of those, right? And then we peel back. It's like we just totally changed the script, and we're like, okay, voila.
Right. You thought you had this, but guess what you really have?
Here we are.
Right.
We're here to help.
Exactly. Exactly. I feel that's exactly what's going to happen.
It already feels like it is. And for all the second waivers, it's closing the book of fate is a journey to close the
Yeah.
book of fate. It is hard, because your identity and everything and all the foundational stuff that you relied on up until now to be, to feel secure, and all that's just like got to go, because that's false alignment. You got to be aligned to the truth. And,
Exactly.
and so, but when you get aligned to the truth, life gets a whole lot easier. And then you're kind of the one floating on the top when everybody else is like tumultuously going, ooh. It's because you've got to be grounded and present and like in the truth in order for other people to feel safe to do their massive purging of their lives that needs
Right.
to happen.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Gosh, that's gorgeous. Well, I have so enjoyed this broadcast, Kevin. I mean, we're at the top of the hour. I can't believe it's been an hour. It's like, what?
Yeah, it went by fast, huh?
It did. Well, I guess you'll have to come back on the show. So, tell us how we get started with you. Tell people how they get started with you. They want to know more about Kevin. They want to get closer to you. I know you have your podcast. So, how do people connect with you?
So I do a weekly podcast, which will be turning into a radio show. We're doing our first practice show tomorrow, and I know it's the New Bridge Radio Show, and people can find that show at newbridgeradio.com. There are episodes on there now. We're kind of a young podcast. We're just kind of, coming on into our own. And doing the radio show is going to be a little bit different. We'll have to see how that goes because I kind of, I don't want to panic like, oh my God, what do I say? What do I say? So that'll be a different experience. So we have that. If anybody is interested in, at the moment, distance Reiki, they can find me on mackeyreiki.com. And I did that because it kind of, what I call my Reiki practice Mackey Reiki because, my first grade class learned to spell my name first because my name is Mackey. And my first grade teacher was like, Kevin Mackey, Mackey.
Oh, nice.
And so when I spell out my website, Mackeyreiki, people are like, that's why you did that. I'm like, yeah. So they can go
Yeah,
to
it's one of
Mackey
those
Reiki.
early programmings that we get.
Yeah. 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 And they can go there. I love receiving affirmations. I want to fill a New Bridge radio show full of affirmations. If anybody wants to send me an affirmation at New Bridge Radio, the New Bridge Radio Show at gmail.com, feel free to, and we'll send it as an MP3 and we'll put it in. Well, we have little affirmations in our show that where people say, "Oh, you can do anything." It's great.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like that encouragement and inspiration.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe you have a little something in your heart that you're like, you know what, I really need to send this as an affirmation. Send it. The New Bridge Radio Show at gmail.com.
Beautiful, Kevin. Well, definitely. I'll put all those links in the show notes. So they'll be in the show notes so you can access them there. And anything else you want to offer to our listeners before we wrap up?
Anyway, I just can't thank you enough for letting me come on your show and talk to you about QHHT, about journeys and my journey. I appreciate it a lot.
Well, wonderful. We enjoyed it. I know I did. I hope everybody out there enjoyed it. And because I know you did, I'm going to ask you, as I always do, for a little help and support in spreading these messages out there into the world. So, love for you to give us a 5-star rating if you feel called to, write a comment, share it out to some friends, put it on your social media, just anything to kind of give engagement, because that's what the engines look for. Is if there's engagement, they share it out even more, and then it gets more people and more people find it, and then that just helps to spread really good vibes. And that's kind of what we need to do right now on the planet, is spread some more good vibes.
Right,
So
absolutely.
yeah, the more people that find QHHT and Reiki and these kinds of things, the better. So, just kind of share it out with an open invitation to say, hey, I got a lot out of this. Just sharing it with you in case you have time to take a look.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we appreciate you. So, I always give kisses on the way out. Would you like to join me in giving some Reiki kisses
Yes.
out there into the world? Okay, here they come, everybody. Here come your Reiki kisses.
There you are.
We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.